Okay guys, so today okay, this is part 2 of a series on C++. Today I'm going to be going over variables and declaring those variables and what that means regarding C++. So when you're dealing with variables, all you need to think about them is a box. A variable is just a box for storage. Now you can store a variety of different things inside this box, but you need to know what size box you need for the variable, for the data going into the variable. And this is why we declare variables before we use them in C++. Okay, so some of the different types of variables. We have integer or int, and these are basically just whole numbers such as 1, 7, 12, 300, and so on. Those are integers. Just think of them as whole numbers. Then we have float, and this could be something like 0.09 or 1.75, 3.14. You get the idea. Floating point numbers. Also, you're going to have char, stands for character, and this you can have A, B, F, C, just characters like that. So it's pretty straightforward. And then the last one that is a little less obvious, if you don't know any type of coding, is bool for boolean, which basically is just true or false. Now another thing you want to keep in mind is that C++ sees the values 1 and 0 as also being true and false. So that's just something to keep in the back of your head when you're thinking about Boolean variables. But yeah, so this will get you started thinking about the different types of variables. Again, integers, whole numbers, floating point variables, float, char, characters, Boolean, true or false. These are the main four that you need to think about when you're beginning programming. Now, how do we use these in C++? So we might have something like the following. We'll have int main for our main program. And we'll have our opening bracket, and we'll just go ahead and put our closing bracket down there. And before you use a variable, you have to declare it and give it a name. So for instance, if we want to use a whole number for, let's say we're making a video game and we need to have our characters X and Y position, we could do something like integer X semicolon integer Y semicolon. Another option is, instead of doing it like this, especially if the variables are related, sometimes it's easier just to do something like that. And you can declare two of them at the same time, letting them know that we need an integer sized box for an X variable and an integer sized box to store a Y variable. So then after we've declared that we need an X and a Y variable, we can go ahead and assign them, such as X equals 10 and Y equals 5. Now, whenever you use a variable name followed by the equal sign, that's known as the assignment operator. Basically what you're doing is you're assigning X the value of 10. So just think of it as a holding tank. You're just putting 10 in there. Another way that people like to say this is goes into. This is the goes into sign, as in 10 goes into X, 5 goes into Y. So just like I said, think of these as just holding, holding boxes or crates to put your junk in. So real quick, we'll look at a true or false statement, and just so you get an idea of how that might work. So we would do something like, we need a bool, and we're going to call this is alive. And then we might write something down here that says if is alive, then execute some code. That might check and see if our character is alive or not. But you don't now you don't always have to write it like integer x equals 4. You could just as easily do int x equals 4 and give it a value in the same line that you declare it in. So that's just something to keep in mind. It kind of cleans up your code if you know what value that variable needs to hold from the get-go, but that's not always the case, so you can certainly just declare it and leave it empty until you need to use it. So I'm going to go to the computer, we're going to get on Visual Studio, I'm going to write a short program for you to follow along with that will really show you how we use variables in a small, easy program. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so here we have integer x, int x, int y for integer y. This is where we declare it, and then here's where we assign x and y, giving them a value of 5 and 10 respectively. And then we're going to create an integer called area, and we're going to assign that the value of x times y. And since these have been assigned before area, we already know that this will be 5 and this will be 10, so we'll be able to calculate that the area is 50. And then we're just going to cout that to the screen. Remember, cout is just a function that puts this output to the terminal, and then we pause it to see our work. So with that, let's see if it works. Go ahead and build it, and sure enough, we get 50 as we expected, and pressing the key to continue. So yeah, that's just a little example. Nothing too complicated, pretty straightforward so far. But thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes of my C++ tutorial series.